We hit up FreedomFest this week at the holiest city on earth, Las Vegas.
NPR creates a disinformation team to combat disinformation from their own news reports.
Dr. Fauci has announced that he's thinking about maybe retiring by the time Biden's term ends. Well, bye.
We interview the founder and CEO of Red Balloon, a company that helps workers find employment at anti-woke businesses. But what does that have to do with balloons?
Are you winning, son? We talk about our favorite video games for all you boomers out there.
All this and more on
The Bee Weekly.
Hey friends, you never want to get caught off guard. And of course, there's a lot of things going on in the world. You know, there's some war stuff going on, some shortages, all that kind of stuff. You need to be ready to respond. So we want you to go right now to preparewithbee.com. That's preparewithbee.com. There you will find a special offer from My Patriot Supply where you can save $150 on their 3-month emergency food kit. My Patriot Supply is the nation's most trusted preparedness company, with 55,000 4-star and 5-star reviews. Their 3-month emergency food kit gives you delicious daily meals to help you through any tough times that you may be facing ahead. So be sure to get 1 kit per person. Your order will arrive quickly in unmarked boxes for your privacy. And you get free shipping too. Oh, you can survive the apocalypse and you get free shipping. That's awesome. Don't ignore this. Don't put it off until it's too late. Go to preparewithbee.com right now. That's preparewithbee.com. I'm here talking with Brandon.
This is me, Brandon.
And
That's
Travis.
who I am.
I'm Travis.
That's who he is.
This is the Bee Weekly, where we talk about stuff that happens in the week and you get to hang out with the Babylon Bee writers. So that's always a great time. I'm Kyle. Did I already say that? I'm Kyle. And we're going to do the Bee Weekly now. We want to make an announcement, everybody. You've enjoyed the Bee Weekly for the last couple years. And sadly, all good things have to come to an end. The Bee Weekly is not ending. But we are going to begin putting it on a separate YouTube channel. So there will be a YouTube channel called the Babylon Bee Podcast, where you can get all our podcast content, while the main Babylon Bee channel will be reserved for hilarious sketches and the like. So be on the lookout for that soon, and we'll have an announcement video and all that, and we'll post the link to the new channel so that you'll be able to subscribe and continue getting the great podcast content that you have come to love and know, and also enjoy. And yeah, so...
Cool.
Does that sound cool?
It sounds fantastic.
Have you subscribed to the new podcast?
I actually have. I'm
Really?
one of the first 4 subscribers.
One of the first.
awesome.
You are the 4th subscriber because the last time I checked, there were 3.
False. Wait.
I think you were in the first
I am
3.
the first 3. Bettina was number 4.
Got it. Okay.
Let's get these numbers correct.
Brandon, have you subscribed to the new?
Well.
Wow.
Well.
Tragic. So this was an exciting week because we got to go to FreedomFest in Las Vegas. I had to give a couple of presentations, and it was an insane time. And at the end, I was thinking, and I was like, that was one of the best weekends in my life.
Yeah, I'm glad I was there.
And Travis was not present.
It was pretty cool. I mean, we got to snag interviews with the absolutely legend, John Cleese. We also got an interview with Senator Rand Paul, which should be coming out
Soon. Probably out before this comes out.
for the plebeians.
But yeah, Adam Ford, the founder of the Babylon Bee, had messaged me and he said, "Were you starstruck to talk to Rand Paul?" And I was like, "No, but I was to talk to John Cleese." What a weird world, man. I was like, John Cleese, like I couldn't even, I ended up having dinner with Senator Rand Paul and he was a really nice guy, but I was like, the amount of starstruckness was way more talking to John Cleese for me. We love you, Senator Paul.
Oh, so you didn't get to have dinner with John Cleese?
I did not have dinner with John Cleese, but it was really crazy. I gave a talk on stage, and I had done a panel with John Cleese's daughter, who's a stand-up comedian, earlier in the day, and I look out and I see John Cleese sitting in the crowd, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, And then later on, I gave a talk that was just me, and he was coming on next, so I was like, I opened for John Cleese, right? And so I come off stage and he's just standing there like, because he's about to come on and I'm coming off backstage. And he just shakes my hand and he just starts talking. And he says, your voice is too low. It's too low. Your mouth is opening, but the voice is low. And I'm very old. I'm quite old. And I could not understand everything you were saying, but I really
Interesting.
want to know more about this book that you've written. And then on the stage, they're like, John Cleese. And he's still talking to me. And they run over and they grab him and they have to drag him on stage, And
So he does what he wants.
So yeah, that was before we interviewed him, and so I was a little more chill for the interview. I'm like, okay, he's an amazingly nice guy.
Until he threw you off your game when he opened up the interview by stealing your note cards.
And I was laughing so hard. It was like I was in a Monty Python sketch at that point. But go check out the John Cleese interview on our YouTube channel as well as the Rand Paul interview. And you guys wandered the convention hall and got a ton of people to answer the 10 questions.
We did. We wandered the convention hall. We asked the 10 questions to random just attendees of the conference and to some of the people that were showing their various freedom wares, I suppose, running their freedom booths. I think that's what they call them. And that's also coming out pretty soon. It's going to be on Friday.
Oh, awesome!
Which is actually today for the plebeians and Thursday for subscribers. If you want to get the podcast a day early, you got to subscribe. You got to pay the price.
Did you do anything cool like interview John Cleese this weekend?
I had a cold, so that was good. But that meant I got to play a lot more Elden Ring.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
Could be dog.
Maybe, if that makes your list. We also talked to Andrew Crapuchettes. Got to be careful with that name. Of Red Balloon, and he's a CEO of this company, Red Balloon, that tries to connect non-woke employees with non-woke employers. So it's like employee freedom and all that, which is great. We got Sizzler Facts this week. We got B Radio. We got Weekly News, but no Adam Yenser. Sad. He's off gallivanting about the country doing comedy shows.
Did you give him time off?
No, he's still writing and stuff.
Oh.
But, Okay.
So what's in the news this week?
Hey, NPR decided to open up a brand new disinformation team. And I loved the nuclear ratio on this tweet from Casey Morrell of NPR. He says, some great company news. We're launching a disinformation team.
Why did they think that would be great? Like, did they think they would be welcomed with open arms? They'd be like, just a few months after the absolute demise of the Ministry of Truth, we decided that everyone's going to embrace this idea of us being the arbiters of what is truth.
Well, it seems obvious to me that because the government couldn't officially get away with it, they're like, well, NPR can do it.
Which is also funded by
the government.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that when the Hunter Biden laptop story came out in October of 2020, they put out a statement saying, why haven't you seen any stories from NPR about the Hunter Biden story? Well, we don't want to waste your time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. So this is so they're great, well qualified to run the disinformation team, I think.
Focusing on the stories that really matter.
That's right.
And I find the idea of a disinformation team with journalists just weird because if you're a journalist, technically you're already doing that. You're trying to, here's the truth, let's report on it.
In theory.
Yeah. So
I find I agree with you, and I find the fact-checking paradigm kind of strange that they have to do this like true-false dichotomy rating on everything, because real journalism has nuance to it. You're like saying, well, okay, there's a mixture of things going on in this story, and you just present the facts. But when you're a fact-checker like Snopes, you have to slap this big true label or this big false label on things, and it leads to bizarre things like labeling satire as false or labeling a politician's statement as true, even though it's clearly mixed with some falsehoods. So
I think everyone's just trying to chase the idea of the Nintendo official seal of quality that they put on the games.
I believe that is in their mission statement.
Yeah. So that's what NPR wants to be.
Majority of companies have that in their mission statement. Our quality must emulate that of.
So what was the deal with the Nintendo seal of quality? It was like supposed to say that Nintendo has approved, because there was like pirated games coming, not pirated, but there was bootleg, like third-party games coming out.
Just third-party games.
Bootleg.
It was basically Nintendo saying,
say bootleg.
We wish we had developed this. Go ahead and buy it.
But because there was some kind of authorization process to like go to Nintendo and get their blessing, and if you didn't do that,
behind-the-scenes payment, possibly.
You just paid for the seal or something.
Because I will tell you, I've played some games that had the Nintendo official seal of quality, and they were not very good.
Well, I want to get the official Nintendo seal of quality tattooed on myself. And then forever I won't be able to say I have.
Is there a Nintendo
That's a great
expert that we
idea,
could like consult about this? Because I would like to get to the heart of the matter as well.
We'd have to get Shigeru Miyamoto.
Okay.
But we have gotten John
I think he's
Cleese
Korean.
and Elon Musk, so we could probably get him too.
Or Chinese.
So a 22-year-old citizen who did not have a carry permit but was legal to carry under constitutional carry law in an Indiana mall food court stopped a mass shooter, ended up killing 3, but probably would have killed a lot more if it weren't for this absolute Giga Chad.
That police officer looks like Mike Tyson a little bit. He looks like White Tyson.
White Tyson?
He kind of looks like Kingpin in the Marvel
I can see
universe.
Kingpin, but Kingpin also looks like White Tyson, so I guess I'll
That's
agree
not
with
important.
Brandon.
The important thing is this guy shot a bad guy, which I was reliably informed never happens.
Yeah.
That's true, because guns are never used for good.
He
Never.
took out the mall shooter in 15 seconds and landed 8 out of 10 shots. If you've never gone to the shooting range before, that's pretty incredible. A moving target at range,
15 seconds.
15 seconds, 8 to 10 shots. And the police chief called him a good Samaritan, and then that turned into a bunch of discussion and memes about what a good Samaritan is.
Was that because everyone hates Samaritans?
I think so.
It's just tricky because we have this. The only thing that makes the news, obviously, is the absolute tragedies that everyone condemns. And realistically speaking, everyone that's saved, the millions of incidents that are resolved by the right person being in the right place at the right time with a firearm, millions, like vastly outweighs the number of deaths.
Like, not necessarily where somebody actually gets shot, but
Right.
a deterrent, like a guard is there or
Right.
a police
Right.
officer is there.
And like even in the worst case scenario, when I'm actually able to have a reasonable conversation with someone, I'll say, a lot of these gun deaths are suicides. A lot of them are gang violence, which you probably won't be involved in. But let's just add those to the total gun deaths. Let's add suicides. Let's add gang violence and multiply it by 10. And we still don't come close to the number of incidents that are prevented. There's just so many more incidents where guns save lives,
Well,
and
that's
that we just can't acknowledge
It's an
those.
interesting case too, just that whenever they put up a number there and say there's this many gun deaths, 30,000, whatever the number is, of gun deaths in the U.S. every year, they want you to think that many people are being randomly shot in a mass shooting. And it's the same thing when how they label mass shootings. This is a mass shooting when it's a gang drive-by in Chicago, or an angry ex-lover that shows up to the house, with a gun. It's like, yes, technically there was a shooting. Yes, technically more than X number of people were shot. But they try to do that to conflate, so you think like every mall and every theater and every school in the country, there's hundreds of these that happen. But if you actually narrow it down to what we think of as a mass shooting, there's been very few, relatively speaking, over the last 5 to 10 years.
I just hate how much we have to talk about this because it's just this constant narrative that's being pushed against this freedom that we have of actually being able to protect ourselves and not having to rely on.
But it's bad logic. It's the same thing they do with abortion. They take the edge case and say, oh, the rapes, rapes, the incest, and then they use that to justify this. And so they take the edge case of the mass shooting and say, that's all of this. And you're like, well, no, it's a very small percentage of what's going on.
And I think that's the unfortunate thing about it. You're taking those cases and you're making it about your political agenda rather than focusing on, oh, this is a legitimate problem that everyone agrees is a problem.
Yeah.
And so no one actually ever talks about real solutions.
But I mean, as far as whatever solutions that we have, what we do know can work is preventative. Like when we have criminals locked up, why is it that one side is fighting to keep them locked up and the other side's fighting to let them go? That is something that will work. I mean, we have many criminals that go back and perform additional crimes after they're let out of jail. This is like statistically verifiable. Why is it that one side's fighting to keep them in, one side's fighting to let them out?
I think I'm also concerned that no one's invented bulletproof skin yet.
Yeah, that is a tragedy.
In other hero news, this 25-year-old pizza delivery driver saved a bunch of kids from a burning house. 25-year-old pizza delivery man runs in a burning house, saves 4 children who tell him another might be in the house. He goes back in, finds the girl, jumps out a window with her, and carries her to a cop. And the whole thing was captured on body cam.
That's hot.
I like how it says 25-year-old man, but that profile picture is
Profile picture is not 25
not
years.
25. It's just the visual discrepancy.
The 25-year-old pizza.
Yeah, 25-year-old man. That's 25-year-old man who's worked the overnight
So
shift
it's a
Walmart.
delivery man that delivers 25-year-old pizza.
He's very late. Probably because he's saving people from fires all the time.
Yeah. guess.
So Whoopi Goldberg said this week that plenty of states violating women's rights is the same as Saudi Arabia.
Whoopi Goldberg also said that the Holocaust wasn't about race. So there's that.
So, she said he didn't have to go to Saudi Arabia, however, to find a country that's violating human rights or a country that's opposing women, because plenty of states that we live in are doing the same thing. Remove protecting rights from women, disallowing them control over their bodies. I just want to say, I think a big part of the problem that we have is our own hands are quite dirty quite often.
It's a great Whoopi Goldberg impression.
Thank you.
You channeled her
She's just
perfectly.
like, Saudi Arabia. It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, control over their bodies. If only there was a movement that was trying to entirely eradicate certain bodies.
Mm. So, President Joe Biden fell off of his bike once that we are aware of.
Oh, not just once, but yeah.
Yeah. And
Most recent
the
time.
location where he fell off of his bike is now known as Brandon Falls. It is a historical landmark on Google Maps.
As a member of the Brandon community, I'm starting to resent this. I'm starting to resent the fact that he's referred to as Brandon and sullying our good name.
So the Google has now deleted this landmark quite sadly. I think someone we need to crowdfund like a plaque that can go up at that spot.
I guarantee there will be one within a year.
I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I have been to the parking spot in India where Jimmy Swaggart was arrested with a prostitute, and there is a plaque above the parking space.
Is there really?
And I just think that's wonderful.
Oh,
so
man.
I like more plaques for things that are not of that much significance.
Well, this is of significance, I think.
Yeah. Well,
It deserves its own little square.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just a different kind of significance. It's not like, this is where the Boston Tea Party happened. This huge historical moment, part of the American Revolution that led into it. Well, it's why we don't like tea.
Explanations with Travis.
That's why we don't like tea. By the way, you might have seen Travis from our segment, Travis's Game Corner. And you need to go back and watch Travis's Video Game Corner if you have not. I don't remember what episode it was in, so just go watch all of them until you get to it. Moderna's CEO walked away from the company with a $926 million retirement plan. I wonder where he got that much money. I wonder where Moderna made that much money. That's pretty
Crowdfunding.
And here's a cell phone from Robert Reich, who has a smug look on his face. And he says, in 2021, he said, "You know how you got your vaccine without paying a dime? That's how all healthcare could be." And then just this week he tweeted, "The federal government gave Moderna $2.5 billion to develop a COVID vaccine. Meanwhile, Moderna's CEO just walked away from the company with $1 billion golden parachute. This is what oligarchy looks like."
Interesting. So, like, it makes it sound like the Pfizer or the Moderna CEO literally took half of the money that they were given. Which is,
$2.5 billion, like he took like half of it.
yeah, that's fascinating.
Oh, that's awesome.
So Fauci is about to retire at the end of Biden's term, and it has nothing to do with the fact that he might be kicked out of power and that he's an octogenarian. Nothing to do with any of that. I think he just realized that this was
This is the time.
He'd spent enough time in
This
those.
is what he said. He said, "It's becoming more and more difficult to get people to listen because even the people who are compliant want this behind them. What I try to convince them of with my communication method is we're not asking you to dramatically alter your lifestyle. We're not asking you to really interfere with what you do with your life. We're just asking you to consider some simple, doable mitigation methods."
I don't think anything that he was recommending were simple and
Stay home from
non-interfering.
school and stay home
Yeah,
from
shut
work.
down the entire economy for...
They don't really interfere with what you want to do with your life, Travis.
Well, I mean, they don't interfere with what Patton Oswalt wants to do with his life.
It's Fuddruckers.
Oh, man.
Fuddruckers.
You know what? I love Fuddruckers, and now it's gone because of the pandemic.
I just hope that his retirement ceremony, he's retiring in front of a pedestal, and behind him is a painting of himself posing in front of another painting of himself.
I would enjoy that very much. So we had a banger of the week this week at the Babylon Bee. treasure in heaven is great, but it's not going to buy you a tank of gas. So let's take a moment to briefly review the current state of our economy and the global effect the war between Russia and Ukraine has had. We're in for a tough year here, and Biden's printing and spending could be catastrophic for the US dollar and the market. That's why a growing number of financial analysts are recommending you diversify with gold and silver now. And the only company we recommend is Allegiance Gold. Our friends at Allegiance Gold can help you protect your IRA or 401k with physical gold and silver and have it delivered securely right to your door. The team at Allegiance Gold takes the time to educate their clients on the importance of having a financial portfolio that's diversified with gold and silver. Allegiance Gold has been one of the top precious metals firms in the nation for their commitment to protecting your hard-earned savings. They have an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, a 5-star rating with TrustLink, and they're AAA rated with the Business Consumer Alliance. If you act now by calling them and you mention Babylon Bee, they'll even give you $500 of free silver on a qualified purchase. Call 844-790-9191 to get this exclusive offer. Or you can visit allegiancegold.com/B. That's B-E-E. Call 844-790-9191. That's 844-790-9191. Or visit allegiancegold.com/BEE.
Banger of the week.
Disaster in Saudi Arabia as Biden keeps asking to meet Jafar. And it's a good little picture of him talking to one of the
He looks better from Jafar.
Saudi Arabia people.
Well, so did he find him?
Jafar?
Yeah.
I don't think Jafar's real.
I'm sure there's someone named Jafar, though.
There might, I don't know, is Jafar a real name? Or was
I assume. I don't know.
I want to know what Travis's thought process is right now.
Please continue.
Like I could
I'm
see
just
the
gonna
wheels
start
turning, but
I don't know. I didn't write this article, but I sometimes when I see a good headline, I'm like, oh, I wish I wrote that one. And then I would have wasted way too much time pitching this alternate universe where he finds Jafar, and Jafar's like, I don't know anything about a lamp.
Give us your headline pitch for this.
No, the headline's fine. It's just that's the article.
The article that gets written.
Mm-hmm.
I want the headline pitch where he actually finds Jafar and says, what did he say? Where is lamp?
Where's lamp?
What did you say? Or something like that.
I didn't say it exactly like that. Where is lamp?
Why is
No,
lamp?
and then the Jafar.
I love lamp.
Jafar's like, I don't have any lamp, guy.
I just want to see a documentary or a feature film narrative called Travis Woodside and the Hunt for Jafar. That would make an excellent
Can we get a
movie.
Photoshop of Jafar with a speech bubble that says, I don't have any lamp, guy?
Thank you.
Talking to Travis.
Talking to me, apparently.
So here's our bomb of the week.
Bomb of the week.
After spending months teaching from movie clips, church wonders why nobody studies their Bible.
And there's a great little picture of a pastor in front of a Jesus, Love and Thunder sermon presentation slide. I like this article.
I love that picture, too.
It's a great picture.
Jesus, Love, and Thunder is a great idea.
What's the worst movie clip you've seen used in church? Growing up, we saw a lot of Braveheart. We saw a lot of like Saving Private Ryan.
I'm trying to think. I
Some
don't.
Lord of the Rings.
I've seen a few like movie sermons, but not a whole lot.
I don't think I ever had the experience of the church where it's like at the movies sermon series. But that's a big thing. Like during the summer, they'll preach the summer months on the big blockbusters of the Bible.
I know it is. I went to a church, and for sermons, for a few sermon series, they just showed like clips from the movie Lion, and they didn't have any like tie into scripture or anything. Like they were just. I felt like it was just kind of like a promotional campaign. Like they were just promoting the movie,
Gotcha.
and so yeah.
When this article came out, my friend texted me and he said that literally his church is doing an At the Movies series, and the sermon last week was basically Jesus is the greatest showman. So
That's amazing. I used to go to a Baptist church, and they showed a Taxi Driver for the depravity of man, and that was kind of weird.
I don't know if you're serious, and I don't care. We're going to Sizzler Facts.
23 weeks ago, we debuted a new feature to the podcast called Sizzler Facts. Now, Sizzler isn't as popular as it once was.
Ooh.
The chain has diminished rapidly in recent years, thanks in part to the COVID pandemic. But
Shame.
Sizzler is still alive and well in Puerto Rico.
Oh.
The Puerto Rican Sizzler, located in the city of San Juan, was once a storehouse used to smuggle slaves to America. It was basically like No, wait, that's the opposite of what I was thinking. Never mind. I was going to say it was like the Underground Railroad of choices, but but now I realize that they were importing slaves, so it's the opposite of the It's the above
to
ground
America,
railroad.
not from America.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's also an underground
That's
railroad.
not-
It's just going the other direction.
So it wasn't a good thing. It was a bad thing.
The above ground railroad.
Yeah. I said that.
The reverse above ground railroad of, yes.
Well, it's okay. Sizzler wasn't doing it though, right? I don't think Sizzler.
You don't. I mean, they are occupying the building, so one could say that they're complicit in the crimes that once took place there.
This has been Sizzler Facts. Now it's time for Sizzler Comments.
Sizzler comments.
This is from Jim Lubke. He says,
That's not a name.
Lubke. He said, you had a news article about Justice Kavanaugh in a steakhouse, and you failed to tie that into Sizzler Facts. I'm disappointed in you.
And so is Kevin Sorbo.
Sad.
From Name That Variant, I live in Olympia, Washington, and when I heard the weird Sizzler, I immediately thought, I haven't been to Sizzler in a long time. I think I'll ask my buddy where the nearest one is. And then, you guys mentioned Lakewood, which is 10 minutes from my house. I'm seriously creeped out. Confirmation of God's providence and Calvinism, for sure.
God using Sizzler for his purposes. That's great.
Yeah,
He uses all Sizzlers for the good of those who love him.
that's in Scripture.
That is in the Bible.
Another brick in the pie says, I live in the Sizzler dead zone. It's difficult at times, but we manage to live much the same way as you. The differences are subtle. The sun doesn't feel as warm or shine quite as bright. The Sizzler dead zone is a vacuum of joy. Hope of a new Sizzler is all that keeps us going, but it is a hollow hope that brings only a deeper despair. My only wish is for those of you outside of the SDZ to take stock of your lives and thank God for your access to medium quality buffet food at affordable prices. Medium quality? I don't think that's right.
Still.
Well, but you have to
condolences.
forgive this Another Brick in the Pile because Another Brick in the Pile lives in the Sizzler dead zone, so wouldn't be aware
That's
of the
so
current
sad,
quality
yeah.
of Sizzler.
That's true. I guess that makes sense.
This has been Sizzler Comments. It is time for B Radio with Austin Robertson. Consume this content now.
Factually inaccurate. Morally correct. This is Babylon B Radio. Our top story. After months of saying that he has no control over the price of gas, President Joe Biden is taking credit as prices dipped by 2 cents. To highlight this monumental achievement, Biden has been placing "I did that" stickers on gas pumps everywhere he goes.
Look, folks, this is 2 cents that we're talking about here. You think this kind of thing happens on its own? Malarkey. Read the stickers. I did that. And remember, Putin makes prices go up, Biden makes prices go down. Repeat line. End of speech.
Biden continued explaining that to achieve this, all he had to do was empty out our entire military's fuel supply. He assured Americans that our military didn't really need it anyway. Biden "I did that" stickers have also been spotted on high food prices, empty shelves, lines of unvaccinated troops being discharged, and the overrun southern border. In a bold move to address the nation's financial woes, Biden has officially called on the American economy to stop being bad. Pundits immediately lauded the president's brilliant plan, with MSNBC heralding it as the most transformative economic initiative since the New Deal. Following a heroic protest at the Supreme Court, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez spent the better part of 3 hours sitting in an invisible police car with her wrists bound by invisible handcuffs, waiting to be taken to an invisible jail.
After being threatened with an invisible gun, I was thrown on the ground by invisible police. They've kept me stuffed in this invisible squad car for hours. Fascists. When I get out of this invisible slammer, I'm going to make them pay. Every last invisible one of them.
Several members of Congress were reportedly arrested outside of the Supreme Court, where they were protesting the court ruling that Congress had to actually show up for work. Sources say AOC has already obtained her first prison tattoo, which is invisible, and is subsisting well thus far on invisible prison food. She has reportedly kept herself in solitary confinement inside an invisible box, but she does come out to weep outside her own invisible prison cell if she thinks anyone with a camera is nearby. AOC has generously offered to donate her invisible handcuffs to be displayed in the Smithsonian in commemoration of her bravery. At airtime, AOC is still being held after her high-profile arrest, as Capitol Police have confirmed they misplaced the invisible key for her invisible handcuffs. Officers found the invisible handcuffs back at the station and realized no one had ever actually handcuffed AOC. They're currently taking bets to see how long she'll stand there until she figures it out. After hearing about Alex Stein's public applauding of Hispanic hindquarters, Senator Ted Cruz walked back and forth in front of him, hoping to score a compliment on his own butt.
"Oh no, I dropped my binder again,"
said Cruz, slowly bending over in front of Stein.
"Clumsy me, it's just this big Latino backside sometimes throws me off balance. Better do some lunges to keep it in form."
Although a confident man, Mr. Cruz admitted to reporters that even he sometimes needs a little physical affirmation.
"It's nice to have the votes of millions of Texans, but sometimes you just want to know that you can still get catcalled by a construction crew. Believe it or not, these hips used to salsa like Shakira back in my Harvard days."
Stein made headlines recently after loudly applauding Representative Ocasio-Cortez's posterior as she walked up Capitol steps.
"Look at that big look at that big, juicy booty."
An enraged AOC called police 5 times before tearfully telling her Twitter followers that no one should suffer such vile harassment when trying to do their job. She then directed all of her followers to go scream violent threats at Justice Kavanaugh while he tried to eat dinner with his family. In response to an armed private citizen bravely stopping a mass shooting at an Indiana mall, the Uvalde Police Department in Texas issued a statement of condemnation, criticizing the citizen for not waiting outside for an hour. The owners of Greenwood Park Mall in Indiana also criticized the armed citizen for carrying a concealed handgun because doing so is against the mall's code of conduct. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has invited the Good Samaritan to Texas to replace the entire Uvalde Police Department. Fake and deceitful nurses inside a local crisis pregnancy center have reportedly just tricked another innocent woman into not killing her own baby. According to sources, the duplicitous volunteers at the clinic celebrated with shouting and high fives all around as the woman left. Witnesses say the loathsome, deceptive clinic uses smoke and mirror tactics, such as letting moms listen to the baby's heartbeat and showing them images of the baby's face and wiggling hands.
"It is unbelievable how deplorable these clinics can be,"
said Senator Elizabeth Warren, an outspoken advocate for baby killing.
"We have to shut down these sham clinics now." What's next? Beautiful babies growing up in a loving home, raised by a man and woman that love them? The horror!
Other disturbing accounts state that the volunteers even prayed with the woman, gave her prenatal vitamins, free diapers, clothes, bottles, a car seat, pacifiers, swaddles, and a multitude of other resources that can be freely accessed at any time. The Crisis Pregnancy Center staff openly stated that they hope to do this again and again to as many women as possible, and that they are just getting started. Freshly transitioned to a woman, Leslie Robers tasted the sweet thrill of womanhood this week as she absolutely smashed her car into a curb.
"You sure feel like a woman now. Better take the car into a mechanic now and get taken advantage of. This is great."
Previously known as Bob, the newly minted Leslie had grown tired of deciding where to go eat and being comfortable at ambient temperatures.
"I just wasn't living my truth,"
she said as she turned down the thermostat.
"Now I can take 100 blankets with me everywhere I go and have completely preposterous mood swings." Wait, did I just close the garage door on the trunk? I'm such a woman!
Sources say Leslie spent the remainder of the day making one sandwich after another, reveling in the joys of femininity. After learning how to do that turban thing women do with towels on their heads after taking a shower, Leslie then added 17 more throw pillows to the bed. After Leslie turned down a high-level appointment in the Biden administration, Victoria's Secret then called to offer her a modeling gig. Safety officials have confirmed that the rickety-looking collapsible roller coaster at your local town carnival, which is currently being operated by a toothless meth addict, is probably fine. We spoke with an official-looking man in a bikini inspector t-shirt who is missing several fingers from his right hand.
"Looks pretty safe to me. I mean, these rides drive all over the country, operate every night, have to be set up and taken down by untrained teenagers several times each week. I'm sure they build them pretty sturdy to be able to stand up to all that."
Gummy Joe, the ride operator, confirmed that the ride's safety record is unparalleled.
"I ain't never seen no kid get hurt on this here coaster. I mean, last month the cars flew off the track and into a nearby lake, but fortunately the seatbelts failed and them kids were thrown clear."
At airtime, someone who looked vaguely like a health inspector confirmed that the corn dogs from the sketchy-looking food trailer are probably fine too. Now you're up to date on the only news that matters. Find more fake news you can trust at BabylonBee.com. Until next time, this is Austin Robertson, the voice of the Babylon Bee. So long.
Today's episode is sponsored by Private Internet Access, America's #1 virtual private network, or VPN. Even if you use incognito mode, your internet service provider is still storing all your browsing data. And many times they even sell it. But PIA encrypts and reroutes your internet traffic through one of its own servers, hiding your data from your ISP or network admin. And with servers in over 75 countries, you can get unrestricted access to geo-blocked content around the world. PIA comes with easy-to-use apps and browser extensions for all devices, a rock-solid privacy policy, open-source security, advanced customization settings, and it was just ranked the fastest VPN in the world by PC Mag. And if you sign up with PIA right now, you can take advantage of a special deal only for Babylon Bee listeners and viewers. It's much more inexpensive than virtually every other VPN on the market. And if you get it right now, you can take PIA's 30-day risk-free challenge, so you can try it out for 30 days and see if you like it. So click on the link and try out the best VPN on the planet, completely risk-free. Jesus can still see you if you're looking at pornography, though. So don't do that. Oh, that was great content.
It was fantastic.
I like the
Thank you,
part
Austin.
with the talking.
That was the highlight. Now it's time for weekly news with Adam Yenser's fill-in.
It's time for the weekly news with Adam Yenser.
Hi, I'm Adam's fill-in. President Biden returned from a trip in the Middle East where he tried to convince Saudi Arabia's leader to increase oil production. Biden claims to be an expert on oil since many of his closest childhood friends are now oil. Several members of Congress, including AOC and Ilhan Omar, were arrested while protesting outside of the Supreme Court. Somehow, Ilhan Omar used her one phone call from jail to call both her husband and her brother. AOC was accused of faking being handcuffed because she stood with her arms behind her back while getting arrested. The Capitol Police are placing bets on whether AOC will realize she isn't handcuffed and has been free to go the entire time. A black family claims that the Rosita character on Sesame Place refused to high-five their daughters due to racism. What's even more racist is that Rosita portrays Mexicans as ugly green monsters. A mass shooter at a mall in Indiana was killed by an armed bystander named Eli Dickin. And henceforth, open carry will be known as Dickin' Around. In the only good argument to date for being pro-choice, Michigan's football coach has come out as pro-life. The U.S. Attorney's Office announced that it will not prosecute the comedy writers of the Late Night Show with Stephen Colbert, who were arrested outside of the Capitol. Instead, comedians will be cruelly sentenced to keep writing for Colbert. After refusing to take responsibility for high record gas prices, the Biden administration is now claiming credit for a 50-cent drop. Biden even put down his own "I did that" sticker on a local gas pump, which was still over $4 a gallon. The UK is experiencing a record-breaking heat wave and had its hottest day ever on Tuesday, hitting 40.3 degrees, which I'm told is pretty hot in Celsius numbers. To provide relief, Prince Andrew invited all the neighborhood kids over to use his pool. The January 6th committee demanded that the Secret Service turn over text messages from the Capitol riot, but the agency was only able to provide a single text exchange. It says, "Yes, I'm driving, but I can text because Trump's holding the wheel." As his lawsuit with Twitter continues, Elon Musk was photographed shirtless on board a yacht on vacation. In a tragic case of mistaken identity, he was speared by Captain Ahab. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck got married in Las Vegas this weekend, 7 years after Lopez divorced Mark Antony and 4 years after Mark Affleck divorced Matt Damon. Chelsea Handler and Joe Coy announced that they've ended their relationship. Both said that the most important quality in a partner is having a sense of humor, so they'll have to keep looking. Transgender swimmer Leah Thomas has been nominated for the NCAA's Woman of the Year Award and for the NCAA's 462nd Man of the Year Award. This has been the Weekly News, and I'm Travis.
Oh, that was great, Adam Yenser.
Fill-in.
Classic Adam Yenser's fill-in.
So at this point, we are going to talk about our John Cleese interview. There was a moment in the John Cleese interview where he says, "Have you ever seen the fish slapping dance?" And Jared and I both kind of looked at each other and were just kind of like taken aback and didn't know what to say. Now, in retrospect, I believe I had seen the fish slapping dance, but in the moment with the Shekinah glory, you know, you're sitting there with John Cleese, there's a little bit of, like, I don't quite remember that one.
Heresy jars back there.
Oh, because I said Shekinah glory for John. I will put, hey, where's all the money? Oh, there's money in there. Yeah, I'll have to put some money in there.
It's right above the John Cleese book.
Oh, nice.
So we had a comment from Nicola Franzoni who said, my opinion about Babylon Bee has gone south. You really don't know the fish slapping dance?
In all caps.
So I'd like to apologize to all the Monty Python fans for not recalling the fish slapping dance. So we're going to go ahead and watch the brief clip of the fish slapping dance.
It'll be funnier without audio. It's still funny. Fun fact, Michael Palin is my favorite Python.
I want to know, like,
Is that a Nazi fish?
it is. I would want to know how they pitched this idea.
I think that's one of the interesting things, and I know you couldn't get too much involved in a 10-minute interview, but it just makes me wonder, like, in a writer's room, and like he said, like during the Ministry of Silly Walks, oh, Terry Jones wrote that. I'm like, how did he pitch that even? Did he just start walking around funny around the room and everyone laughed at him?
I can see Ministry of Silly Walks being able to be pitched as a concept, because you can say very serious office setting, very serious situations, but every time we like pace the room, we're in these crazy walks, and I could see that being funny. We were just watching Silly Walks before the interview, and the contrast between what he's saying, he's like, now you have to understand, and he gets up and he's like starts pacing the room like you would in an office, but he's just like, I just love the contrast of how flat their voices are, how dry it is, versus them going crazy around the room. But yeah, the fish slapping dance. But again, it's a very short segment that, as part of it, once you have an established sketch comedy brand, and you can just, like, we probably couldn't get away with just throwing that up on our YouTube channel.
Certainly not isolated by itself.
Right, but if you had a 30-minute sketch show, you could get away with a transitional sketch where, like, we're just going to slap each other with fishes.
So the question is, did they have all of their other segments already produced, and they just needed a 23-second filler?
We need 20 seconds. What do you
What
got?
can we do in 23 seconds?
Well, we got this old fish slapping thing.
But I also just love how that's what he glommed onto. Like, that was the one that he felt like he needed to mention in that particular moment.
Yeah, I often think of like an old joke that I wrote on the Bee like years ago, and I'm like, man, that was my favorite joke. Nobody else liked it. Nobody else remembers it. But it's, the one that sticks with you. So I love that comedy. And I think what he said in the interview was, I love it because it's so hilarious and absolutely meaningless. And there is something to that absurdity that just lets you go, now that's funny. Someone is getting slapped with a fish.
Yeah. Well, and there was like a longer version of that sketch almost, where it's called Confuse a Cat, and the cat's just not moving. So they're like, oh, we need to confuse this cat. So they put on this whole stage production, and it's the weirdest thing. And I watched it with my daughter, and she was just laughing hysterically.
I did go back and watch that where John Cleese like does a whole like mini documentary on the history of fish slapping. And did you see this?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's years later, I think, and he's like going back and reminiscing over and he's showing the different fish you use for the fish slapping dance. Some people like the little oily ones. Others go for the classic, and he's like...
I like when you take something that simple and ultimately meaningless and then just stretch it out as long as possible.
Yeah.
I think heft is the most important criteria when choosing this.
It's true. If you're trying to win, can you
or
win the fish
you could just, dance? I mean, if you can't make decisions well, you just spin the wheel of fish.
Well, that depends on what the point of the fish
Red
slapping
snapper.
dance is. Like, is
Very tasty.
Sure. Is the point that you're trying to defeat the other person, or are you dancing? So it's a dance. So tiny fish are good.
There is some reciprocal play in which fish you need to choose. Also, I know a lot of people were criticizing the altar call at the end of the John Cleese interview. And we would just like to, on the record, state that along with John Cleese, we also at the Babylon Bee fully condemn burning people at the stake. I know that was his primary contention with Christianity, was people being burned at the stake, and we would like to state for the record that you should not burn people at the stake. You should weigh them against a duck.
So John Cleese had a lot of interesting thoughts on wokeness and sensitivity in comedy. His daughter had a lot of thoughts about that on the panel as well. And I know we were there with a few other interviews, and some of them were really grilling him on trying to get the soundbite on wokeness. But he kind of struck me as a guy that was a little, he comments on that stuff, but he really likes comedy for the sake of comedy. And I thought that was really interesting. But he's against the wokeness and the sensitivity just because it's bad for comedy.
Yeah.
And that's the sense that I got. So it was really interesting. Go check out the John Cleese interview if you haven't. Don't watch any of the other guys who got an interview with John Cleese. Ours was the best interview. And now we're going to talk to Red Balloon CEO Andrew Crapuchettes, who has this company that's trying to pair people who are pro-freedom with employers that are pro-freedom. It's kind of interesting. He has employers sign a pledge that they won't like force you to get a vaccine, that you can make your own personal choices, and the company doesn't care. It's like, let's just do good work together. And that's pretty cool. So let's talk to him now. And come on, Mr. Crapuchettes. If you're like me, the first thing you do when you get up is you pull out your phone and you start playing a video game, or you start scrolling Facebook and Twitter, and it starts infecting your brain. And instead, you should consider opening the Abide app and starting your day in the spirit and peace of Christ in the Bible. Abide is the #1 Christian meditation app. Abide users report less stress, lower levels of anxiety and depression, and better sleep. For a limited time, our listeners get 25% off a premium subscription when you visit abide.co/Babylon. Whether it's the start of the day and you want to start the day right by getting some scripture in your mind, or it's the end of the day and you want to just kind of doze off while you hear God's word and some meditations from scripture, we encourage you to join the millions of people using Abide. You can get started now with 25% off a premium subscription by downloading the Abide app at abide.co/Babylon. You'll get additional stories and meditations, premium music, soothing sounds. You can support the Babylon Bee podcast and get 25% off by going to abid.co/Babylon, where you can download the Abide app and get 25% off your premium subscription.
And now for another interview on The Bee Weekly.
All right, thanks for coming on, Andrew. How you doing?
Better now because I'm talking to you.
That's what everybody should say, but nobody ever does, which is really tragic. So, Red Balloon, is this non-woke LinkedIn? Is that what this is?
Well, somewhat. Although if you look at my head, it looks a little bit like a balloon, and if it's hot enough.
Oh yeah, so you're the mascot.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mascot. So
of Red Balloon.
I was a tech CEO like a year ago. And my board decided I was a little too conservative and Christian for their liking. And so I found myself delightfully unemployed and thought, what should I do with my time besides golf or pinochle or whatever? So I started Red Balloon. And it's called Red Balloon because if you have ever been on a hot air balloon, it's a little bit terrifying and a lot bit fun, kind of like looking for a new job. And red, well, everyone's going to red states or red versions of blue states, and so, or red companies that actually allow you to be free. And so I thought, great, I will start a job board called redballoon.work because .com sounds like communists, and we don't like communists.
So no communists allowed on Red Balloon.
That's it, and we like working. So redballoon.work. Look, it's just employment matchmaking for conservatives. And if you are an employer out there and you think, I wish I didn't have those employees that are snowflakes in the HR department whining about every little thing, and I wish I just had people who wanted to work, Red Balloon might be a good solution for you. And if you're an employee out there and you're tired of being at the big woke company, and I hear horrible stories, horrific stories, about big woke companies and what you have to go through in your DEI training and your CRT training, maybe it's time for you to do something at work that gets you fired and then go find a new job at redballoon.work. There's a lot of opportunities out there if you want to get fired. It's a lot easier than you think.
Yeah. Yeah, so what your story of getting fired for having conservative beliefs, a lot of times we talk to people that do get fired like that, but it's kind of like they won't say that. They won't say that you're fired for your political beliefs. They'll kind of go like, you know what, we went with someone else. But was it explicit in your case, or what's the story there?
I had my board say to me, look, you are welcome to be a CEO who is a Christian, call it on the weekends, but you are not allowed to be a Christian CEO. That felt pretty explicit. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So are you still in California, or did you bail?
No, I'm actually an early adopter of getting out of the People's Republic of California. So I've been up here in beautiful Idaho for 20 years. I live on 60 acres, 10 minutes from my office.
Great.
I have 5 children and 3 massive dogs. It's living the good life.
Yeah, I don't think that's legal in California anymore, any of that.
Yeah, the dogs, you can have as many dogs as you want in California. It's all those children.
It's the children that aren't allowed, yeah. But I don't think 60 acres are available anywhere in California, so...
No.
At least not.
But I can see 100 miles from my front porch, so I have to compensate somewhere.
So you mentioned the stories that you've been hearing. What are some of the craziest things you've heard from people out there in the woke corporate world?
the woke corporate world. So I'll even give some names. I'll name names
Yes,
in
let's
today's
do it.
episode of the Babylon Bee. Microsoft, I talked to an executive at Microsoft, and she had an American flag on her Zoom background, or her Teams background as it is, because that's their product, so they have to use it. And she was told to take that down because that was a white supremacy logo or sign or whatever, right? And she's like, what kind of country do we live in? But then she had a coworker, and this is where it gets a little bit dark. She had a coworker had a picture of a black man being lynched. And the caption said, "A good man died at your hands today," right out of that CRT playbook. And not only was that tolerated, it was celebrated at Microsoft. Great, fantastic. Let's make every white person feel horrible because of bad things that might have happened in our country that clearly all of their relatives did. So those kind of things. I talked to a lady at Deloitte, and she had just gone through her inclusivity training and her justice training. So she'd already done her D and her I.
She needed the E still, yeah.
Yeah, she's needed an E. She'd already done her D and her E, and so she was doing her I and her J.
Okay, all right.
And then the instructor gets up and says, "Hey, guess what would be really we hate those unvaccinated people, don't we? Don't we all wish that they would all go to an island and die together?" Right? And the reality is that this is an American saying this to another American. I wish all the unvaccinated people would go to an island and die together, and in a corporate training. And so this lady kind of says, "This is probably my moment." As I said earlier, it's a lot easier to get fired than you think. She's like, "It's probably time." So she raises her hand and says, "Yeah, I'm not going to get the jab." And she said that the room's just dead silent because the instructor thought, "Hey, we all agree. We all think this kind of thing, right? It's going to be just fine." And then for this person to say, "No, I'm not going to get the jab," and that's wrong. It's not inclusive at all. And then this is a cool part of the story is two other people in the room raise their hand and say, "Yeah, guess what? I'm not going to either."
Now you talk about the lady standing up and then other people stand up with her. Is that the feel that you get? Is that these corporations, this is all coming from woke people taking over HR departments, and probably there's a majority of people who, if there was actual free discussion, would stand up for this kind of stuff, but people are just too scared because they don't want to get their jobs? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, it's not cool to be conservative anymore. So I have a podcast now. It's called The Courageous Economy. I've never thought of myself as a podcast person. Not that I'm judging podcast people, if you know what I mean.
No, it's okay. You can judge us.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I'm judging podcast people. They're the worst. And so now I'm one of them, The Courageous Economy, because I started hearing these stories of people like, you have to be courageous to be a public conservative anymore. It's just not okay to say these things. And so at Red Balloon, we had this campaign over the month of June. We wanted people to come out conservative because I thought, well, if you can actually live your beliefs out loud in the month of June, it would be a really good thing. And it was really simple things. We encourage people like, if you go to work, don't lie about your weekend, right? And we think, well, what are you talking about? Well, if someone says, "How was your weekend?" and you had a glorious day at church with your family and a potluck, go ahead and say that. See how it goes. And so I actually had dozens of stories of people who are connected to redballoon.org coming out conservative in the month of June. One of them was at Disney. He is no longer at Disney. And he said, "It really is fun to be tarred and feathered. Thanks for the advice, Andrew."
Awesome. All right. Well, redballoon.org. So you want both employers to sign up and people who are out there looking for a job. Maybe they got canceled. Maybe they got beliefs that aren't popular. And both of those can go interact with your website.
Yep, absolutely. Every employer who is on redballoon.org has signed a pledge that they think the Constitution still matters, that a medical procedure like a vaccine is a good decision for the employee to make, not the HR department, and that they're going to respect the freedoms of their current and future employees and not decide to turn into a political activism woke cesspool. So that's what the employers sign. The employees are all signing something that says, "Look, I'm just going to bring value to my employer. I'm going to wake up every day thinking about how do I drive profits and values for my employer." So it's been super gratifying. We have employers like Moms for America or Children's Health Defense or MediShare have had huge amounts of success hiring people off redballoon.org because the reality is it's hard to screen and filter for wokeness or for worldview or for cultural fit. And all of the people on redballoon.work are a good culture fit. You know they are, partly because one of our screening mechanisms is we have a video game on redballoon.work called Pronoun Landmines, based on a true story. And so if you go and play Pronoun Landmines and you're a self-respecting liberal, you will not like yourself afterwards. So don't do it.
Awesome. Sounds radical and dangerous. I love it. Now, do you mind if we take a few minutes here to ask you the 10 questions that we ask every podcast guest?
I will give you 9 questions only.
The 10 questions.
All right. The first one is, have you met Carmen?
I have not met Carmen.
Tragic.
And I'd appreciate it if you didn't bring it up again.
Okay. Well, we'll do. Number 2, are you a Calvinist or an Arminian?
I'm a Calvinist. I actually go to Christ Church here in Moscow, Idaho. Doug Wilson is my pastor.
That explains it. Now it's all coming together. Number 3, you get to add one book to the Bible. What is it?
Add one book to the Bible? The Book of Andrew.
The Book of Andrew, okay.
I mean, why did all the other apostles get a shout out?
That's true.
Seriously.
Not fair.
Nope.
Cigars or pipes?
I'm a non-smoker, which is a little embarrassing.
Weird. Tragic.
At times. I know, a lot of people have judged me. I love my whiskey, but I've never gotten around to smoking. I was raised kind of a fundamentalist homeschool.
You get to hang out with any 3 people, living or dead. Who are they? And you can't pick Jesus.
I would like to hang out with Napoleon because he was short like I am and he conquered the known world.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to hang out with Genghis Khan. Yep. He also conquered the known world and probably was short, although we don't really know. Also, he did nasty things to people, and I think that's interesting. Even
so your 2 criteria for people to hang out with is height and having taken over the world.
And then probably the Apostle Paul. I mean, the dude was wicked smart, and he probably was short too.
He was probably short.
You see, I've got a theme here of short people.
And took over the known world with the gospel.
Yeah, that's it. So conquerors, 3 different conquerors, all of them short. The best people.
Well, you might have spoiled this one already, but whiskey or beer?
Oh man, I like to think of myself as an equal opportunity drinker.
Okay.
And so I have a whiskey. If you ever make it up to Idaho, and this is an open invitation for anyone who's listening and can find me, I have 70 different whiskeys, most of which you're not going to find at the store, in my house. So some really extravagant stuff. So just come up to Idaho and I might even share.
All made in your bathtub.
Correct.
What would be the first thing you would do as president?
I would shut down the Department of Education.
Perfect. Question number 8. Have you ever punched anyone or been punched?
I was a boxing instructor for quite a few years.
What about outside the ring?
Outside the ring? I mean, face? Does it have to be face or shoulders, chest?
Any kind of punch is fine.
Oh, yeah. Lots of punching. I have 3 sons. And So here's my theory. We live in a great Christian community, and there's not a lot of bullies here. And so as a father, you kind of need to fill in the gaps in your kids' education that they can't experience in school because they go to a classical Christian school. And so I try and kind of fill that gap of bully when I can, just so that they have a rounder education.
Wonderful. Now, you said we only get 9 questions. So here's...
you can go with 10.
Okay, well, I was just going to put 9 and 10 into one. One concert, any band in history, who do you go see? And also, will you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior right now?
I didn't hear your second question because I was thinking about the first one.
Okay.
Can't process 2 questions at one time. This is going to sound like a total homeschool nerd, but I would have loved to see Tchaikovsky play the piano when he was in his heyday, and his hands that just wouldn't quit.
Great, awesome. And do you accept Jesus?
What was my 10th question, even though it's really the 9.5?
Will you come forward and accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior right now?
Given that I've already accepted him, and it's a great question, I don't feel like I need to accept him again, so I'm in good shape.
Sad. All right, well, thanks for joining us, and thanks for playing along, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Everybody go check out redballoon.work. Whether you're an employer who wants to find some people that are pro-freedom, or you're an employee looking for a pro-freedom employer. Thanks so much, Andrew. Well, everyone, it's time for another Babylon Bee Top 10 segment. These have been rather popular. We have done the top 10 comedy shows. We did top 10 cartoons. And now to show you how mature we are, we're doing our top 10 video games, and we're joined by producer Dan, as well as Travis is still here. So, Travis, why don't you start us off with your number 10 top video game of all time?
Of all time, number 10.
Well, these are sometimes, you got, just for context, these are sometimes they're games that have a personal meaning to us. Not necessarily we're saying that these are the 10 best ever. They are our 10 favorites.
Mine are the best 10 ever.
Well, mine is the definitive list, true, but go ahead.
But Travis is speaking from his own personal...
Yeah, this is just my subjective...
Travis's are wrong, but they are his opinion.
Number 10 is Elden Ring.
Wrong. Instantly.
As we said, wrong.
So good. It's, it's fresh on the mind, but
yeah,
I love it.
Did you like the Dark Souls games?
I did. Never beat a single one of them.
But enjoyed them.
Yes, but I beat Bloodborne.
I did enjoy Elden Ring, but how many quests did you complete without looking at a guide?
There are no quests.
Sad.
All right. Well, nice pick. My number 10 is Command & Conquer Red Alert 2, which was a fantastic real-time strategy game. I played the crap out of it. My parents banned me from playing it anymore because I would get home from school and play it for 8 hours and then go to bed.
It also has a great script.
It does have a great script.
That opening scene with the president going, "We're supposed to be allies, you maniac."
I don't give a wooden nickel about your legacy. I still have lines from it memorized. Gina Carano was in Red Alert 3, by the way.
Oh, that's right, she was.
Next week, Travis recites the entire script.
I'll do it.
Quote from your book or Red Alert 2? That will be the next one.
My number 10 is unfortunately, this one kind of went under the radar, but it's Beyond Good and Evil.
Always wanted to try it, never got to.
It was a fantastic little game that combined espionage with action and photography.
That's pretty much your life anyway.
Pretty much, especially the espionage portion.
And you're a woman.
No response. And unfortunately, Beyond Good and Evil 2 seems like it will never come out.
Was that a Bungie game? Remind me.
It was an Ubisoft.
Oh.
Is it Ubisoft or Ubisoft?
I believe...
It's French, so it's like Ubisoft.
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 The FT is silent. Okay. Dan, what is your number 10?
Number 10 for me on this very prestigious list is Rocket League. Now, Rocket League is fast-paced. It's the only sports game on my list, and it made it just because of how insane it is. You're in these rocket cars. You've played Rocket League, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't need to explain it that much, but like just the idea that you can go up in your car, jump off a wall, do like a 360 loop spiral, hit a soccer ball, an oversized soccer ball, and smash it into a goal.
If real life soccer was like Rocket League, I would watch real life soccer.
Yeah.
Probably, yes, but I think there would be a lot of deaths involved in that.
One of my favorite sports games also, but not as good as NFL Quarterback Club 98.
Oh, yeah.
There's just something about the precision of the controls of like how you can just jump, spin, bump things at certain angles. It's like it's just geometry. It's amazing.
I wish I was better at Rocket League. I do like watching highlight videos on YouTube of people that do insane bobbling and passes and goals.
I like how you describe it as a sport game, though.
Well, it's a sport.
I mean,
it's sports.
Technically, but it's not a real sport. So.
It is.
Well, soccer isn't a real sport.
I'm not defending soccer.
I normally don't like sports games. This one made my list.
What's your number 9, Travis?
Number 9 is The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask.
Ooh, controversial choice.
Is it?
I think Majora's Mask is a bit divisive among fans.
I don't see the problem with it. I don't know why people...
I like it.
Yeah.
I think the timed thing was a little... I felt like you needed to buy the strategy guide to get all the masks.
I disagree, but I'm a big proponent of any
I liked Majora's Mask, don't
Groundhog
get me
Day
wrong.
type media.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It had that Groundhog Day style going for it, and it did it well. But, I mean, you're right. If you really wanted to get everything, you'd probably lose your mind.
I think, and I think it has such a cool tone as well. Just the like foreboding end of the world moon coming down.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't like about it was it came out after Ocarina of Time. And Ocarina of Time had, what, like 8 dungeons or something? And then this one had 4. And I was like, well, lame.
My number 9 is Doom Eternal, which is the most recent Doom game. And it's one of the games that's just one of the best shooter games. I love how you actually have to charge forward to attack if you're going to survive an encounter. It's brutally difficult and a ton of fun.
It sounds like Elden Ring.
Like Elden Ring, but good.
Correct. My number 9 is Half-Life 2, and this is a threefer because it includes Half-Life 2 Part 1 and Half-Life 2 Part 2, which is the most confusing names of 3 video games.
Half-Life 2 1.
No, Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Part 1,
Episode 1,
and
Half-Life 2,
Half-Life
Episode 2.
Yeah,
and then
so-
Episode 3, which never came out.
But just the ability, the fact that it's linear, but it doesn't feel linear, that moving through the map actually moves the story along, and you don't have to solve every puzzle the way that they intend to. Like, just the physics engine allows for a lot of creativity, and it's just it's one of those games that...
You took the words out of my mouth.
And does that include like all of the mods of it? You know, like Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat?
I never played a lot of mods for Half-Life 2, so I can't speak to that.
I will speak to that later.
All right, number 9 for me, Super Metroid.
Nice.
One of the classic, just 2D scrolling games. Just it's puzzly. Like you're just trying to get through this big giant dungeon, and it's incredible.
Super Metroid, great pick.
Yeah, I like it when Metroid can crawl.
Oh yeah, and you can do so many things. You can turn into a ball. You can shoot missiles.
Yeah,
and it's sweet.
I want Travis's comments to just like be followed by an awkward silence, and let me go, okay, number 8. I like when Metroid can crawl. Isn't it Samus, not Metroid? Did you say?
Yeah, it is Samus.
Did you say Metroid?
I like the phrase.
Kids are always like, "Oh, it's Metroid, right?"
Metroid is a strong male protagonist, and that's what I appreciate about this
Along
series.
with Zelda.
What is your number 8?
Number 8 for me is Half-Life 2. Pretty much the exact same reasons as Brandon, but just Half-Life 2. Because Episode 1 and Episode 2, adding them together, that's cheating.
Oh, so you're just picking the first one?
Yes.
Okay.
The original.
Sad.
Another great pick. My number 8 is Metroid Prime for the GameCube, which was one of the few first-person shooters that really works for me on console because of the way that they did the targeting system. It's just a beautiful world to explore. The soundtrack is amazing. I loved the novelty of having the visor, and when you go into the frozen area, it freezes over, and you see sweat form.
Rain effects on it.
Yes,
Yeah,
and you
it's
see
fantastic.
Metroid's face, his eyes reflected in the visor.
He had kind of feminine eyes, but
I admit to being fairly attracted to Metroid as a male
but he
protagonist.
displayed strong masculine
But
qualities.
strong masculine qualities, yes.
So it forgives. I
didn't
forgive the eyes.
I never quite enjoyed all the other Metroid Primes, but 1 was amazing.
1 was fantastic. That's on my honorable mentions list. My number 8. We're on 8. Yeah.
Yes.
The Portal series. But if
one of them.
Okay, Portal 2. Are you happy? You happy?
I am
Travis?
happy.
I'm actually replaying Portal 2 on the Steam Deck right now. I just love it.
Absolutely. Portal 2 obviously capitalized on the success of everything they did right in Portal, but added the story element, greatly expanded the puzzle variety, and was atmospheric to a T.
Well, what a great surprise Portal was when it came in the orange box, and it was just a bonus that was thrown in, and it was arguably the coolest thing in the box. That was just great, yeah.
All right.
Now you're thinking with portals.
Number 8 is StarCraft. So
nice.
if you're gonna play one real-time strategy game, it's gotta be StarCraft. Just the way that they made it, like a rock paper scissors. Everything can beat something, but then something else can beat it, and you're doing this in real time. The graphics, the setting, everything's awesome.
Were you primarily a multiplayer or single player?
I would play multiplayer, but a lot of it was co-op. We would team up against like 6 bots and
Gotcha.
Oh man,
Are you a Zerg Rush fan? Favorite faction?
Oh man, I always pick Terran.
Okay.
I like the cool spaceships and vehicles and
You
stuff.
like the colonizers?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What's your number 7?
Number 7 is Resident Evil Uno, the original.
In Spanish.
Yes.
In Spanish, only in Spanish. And not the remake, even though I really like that one too, but the original was just, there was nothing like it at the time. And even though it was difficult to play with the so-called tank controls and the camera angles that were
Can you get up and demonstrate what the characters
I'm glad you asked.
looked like walking around? Nobody can see that because your back's to the camera. But that's awesome. Thank you, Travis. So Resident Evil 4 was the only one that I really loved in the series, but I did like
because it controlled better, probably.
It was the first one I played, honestly.
I thought the physical inventory was a really interesting system.
Where you actually have to physically play the Tetris game, which is how it is when you're trying to fit things into a backpack.
True.
My number 7 is the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I've always enjoyed the Elder Scrolls series. Morrowind, to me, was the one that when I booted that up on my PC and I walked outside of after you make your character and you walk outside of the little prison thing, and I'm like, I can go anywhere. There was like a moment of, there's a few gaming moments to me that like define my video gaming career. And walking outside that first town in Morrowind was one of those.
I think I would have liked Morrowind more when it first came out if I played it on PC. Because I played it on the Xbox and I was like, why isn't my axe hitting anybody? It's just, because it's an RPG. And then they fixed that in Oblivion, even though it's not as good.
And the graphics were probably really bad on the console as well.
Yes.
All right, mine next on my list is Dr. Mario.
Oh, great pick.
Which is, I mean, it's a classic that will stand the test of time until eternity. I am absolutely certain of
Better
this.
than Tetris.
Yes.
Yes.
But the music's not as good.
I quite love the music in Dr.
Music
Mario.
in Dr. Mario is fantastic.
I know Fever is really good, but
Chill?
that Tetris music.
Come on, Travis.
I really love Dr. Mario, but I really don't like playing with Brandon.
Yeah, it is not fair. That's
It's
true.
not fair.
We got the NES Classic, what was it called? The mini NES little thing that had all the games on it. And I thought we'd play original Zelda and Mario. It basically became a dedicated Dr. Mario machine in my house.
Well, I felt bad one day because I was walking in. I walked in on you and Dan playing Tetris, playing Dr. Mario. And it just slipped out of me. I was like, I said something really snarky like, why aren't you guys playing well? Or something like that. I was like, why are you so bad at, or something like that.
Yeah, you're like I don't even see the Matrix code anymore. I just see pill.
I just see pills.
I just see pill, personally.
And I like that Dr. Mario can crawl.
Yeah.
All right, number 7, TIE Fighter.
Oh, great pick.
Now,
Great pick.
I was really into flight simulators as a kid. You know, the geeky kid with his PC and the joystick. Out of all of them, TIE Fighter was the funnest. It was just Star Wars. I was a big Star Wars nerd. But what set TIE Fighter apart was the idea of like having your own career as a TIE Fighter pilot.
You start as a cadet. And
And then like you come back from the mission, you survive, you get your medal. And I'm trying to remember, I think it had permadeath. I think if you died, you just had to start over.
I don't remember. What I did like about TIE Fighter is that it was, at the time, all the Star Wars games were very scripted. There was like Rebel Assault. Rebel Assault, where it was like just on a path and you kind of flew like in that path. I like the TIE Fighter. Like every ship has stats. You could go blow up the capital ship
if you want,
theoretically, right?
Theoretically.
Like everything was just like a sandbox world of like I'm flying around and I'm actually in the Star Wars world.
So. Yeah, X-Wing came first, but I think TIE Fighter was a step above it.
TIE Fighter was awesome. Yes, agreed.
Number 6, Metal Gear Solid. I think for similar reasons as Resident Evil, it was just a cinematic experience back when cutscenes were like, wow, that's cool. And now it's like, skip. But at the time, it was really innovative.
Couldn't skip them. So.
You couldn't skip them.
And
you didn't want to.
Can you reenact some of the espionage tactics?
Can you show us how?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Can you get inside a
Just
box?
for the rest of your list, you have to reenact it.
I tried to play it at a friend's house, and the graphics were so wonky to me, I never got into it. But I did end up replaying the GameCube remake,
Twin Snakes,
which was awesome.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal game. And it did interesting things like with Psycho Mantis, and it was reading your memory card and telling you what games you played.
The bit where you have to actually swap the controllers around. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then the bit where there's a code and it says in the game, look on the box. And you're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I bought the second hand.
I know. It's on the back of the game case. Like, I called a friend and I called Spidey. And he was like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, it's on the back of the case." And I had to call a friend to ask because I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, it did a lot of cool ideas that you can't even do now because no one buys physical games.
It's true.
Is that the game? I'm trying to remember. Did that have like that one cutscene where you had to mash X like a crazy person?
Because you're being tortured?
Yeah, and if you didn't do it, you would get one ending, and if you could do it, you would get another ending. I was always annoyed because I could never get the other ending.
Was that the beginning of the contextual action?
Judges?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one where you had to mash X.
We'll fact check Dan after the show.
Yeah.
My number 6 is Chrono Trigger. Chrono. I don't know. It's a great game.
It's Chrono.
Mine is Chrono Trigger, and this game I played later in life. I played it on the Nintendo DS, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I don't typically like JRPGs. This one captured my heart.
I really like it when Chrono crawls.
And Chrono can crawl.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
And it's got a robot.
Fantastic soundtrack. characters that die depending on the choices you make, 5 or 6 different endings, a great storyline. I actually think games like Mass Effect 2 stole everything that made Chrono Trigger great and just put it in the modern day. But yeah, Chrono Trigger.
All right, my number 6 is Fallout 3. Are you happy, Travis?
Yeah.
I chose a number.
Instead of saying Fallout series.
The entire Fallout.
I know
every
a lot-
post-apocalyptic video game ever made.
Kyle and I were chatting about this. I know a lot of people prefer New Vegas. I just loved the urban setting of 3, the fact that they had reinvented the Fallout series for the 3D landscape, the amount of buildings that you could go into and just explore the lore and just kind of discover what happened through this dilapidated wasteland.
I would say it was one of the great transitions from a 2D game to a 3D game. Fallout 3.
Yes, and it was a very interesting combat mechanic system that
Yeah, the VATS was really cool.
with a combination of obviously the RPG elements and action elements.
Yeah.
Just that ability to at any time make it a turn-based thing, where like I'm going to choose what I'm going to do exactly. That's really
cool.
That's genius.
With wisdom, because you only have a certain amount of
Freeze.
the points.
time.
Yeah,
Bullet
bullet
time.
time.
Yep. Number 6, Super Mario Brothers 3.
Good pick.
Out of all of the 2D Mario games, that is the best. People argue Super Mario World, not even close. Super Mario Brothers 3.
I agree with that.
It did everything Super Mario World did as an 8-bit game and better.
Yeah.
And Tanuki.
And Tanuki, yeah, that's always the thing. I assume that's a Japanese thing.
I like
but
the
I'm
boot.
Why is the raccoon making him fly?
I like the boot. The boot is underrated.
The giant boot he gets.
Yeah.
Tanuki is OP.
And it was such a massive game. You had 8 worlds with however many levels each world, and like it's theoretically possible for you to just sit down and just beat it. Like
It's amazing that it's on the same system as the original Super Mario Brothers.
It is.
Right.
Which is just this linear, very little colors, very little texture. And you get Super Mario Brothers 3 and they have like a whole overworld and an inventory and all these insane concepts.
Yeah.
Also, the movie The Wizard, we have to thank for that as a really giant advertisement. Number 5, Silent Hill 2.
So you're a PlayStation kid.
No.
No.
I was a Silent Hill kid.
Okay.
It's me and my homies kicking back with some Silent Hill.
Can you crawl in that game?
You cannot crawl in that game, but you can stick your hand in holes.
Look out for our list coming up soon of top 10 crawling video games.
Followed by top 10 hand-in-hole video games.
Now, I won't act out how they move because you move pretty much the same as Resident Evil in that game. That's the main problem with it. It's like, okay, it's difficult to play, but superb story.
Awesome. My number 5 is Left 4 Dead 2, which I have logged something like 800 Steam hours on because I get the whole family together, me, my 2 older boys, and my wife. That's a perfect party for Left 4 Dead, and we just play the crap out of it.
So the thing is, you could also multiply those hours by 4, essentially.
3,200 hours.
That's a lot of
Left 4
hours.
Dead 2. I could have
Peels here.
accomplished many things other than grabbing peels.
Peels.
Grabbing peels. That's what he says.
Did you have like John Piper in the back of your brain? Like the
Yeah, like,
seashell thing? Like 800 times?
Wasted. You're wasting your life.
My number 5 is Knights of the Old Republic.
Great pick. Great pick.
And it's one of the few games that I've played more than 2 times.
Your thoughts on KOTOR 2?
Garbage. Absolute garbage. But a better lightsaber crafting system than the first one.
It's too bad we don't have a lightsaber expert that could come and talk
if
to us
only.
about that.
If only.
Tragic. Dan, what's your number?
Number 5, The Legend of Zelda, the original from
wow.
NES. And the reason why I picked it is I think it was the first game that came with a battery in the cartridge so that you could actually save your file. And it was just, it was like, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's the first open world game where it just drops you in. You go into the cave, the guy gives you the sword. Here, it's dangerous to go alone, take this. And then it doesn't tell you anything of what you're supposed to do. You're like, what am I supposed to do?
Are you even forced to go in that cave? Like,
no, I mean,
Technically, no.
You
You
could
just walk away and not have a sword. Yeah.
Which is so cool.
And I think everything that you need to play is like on the game box, or like they give you a little map inside the game box, and it's like there's 8 dungeons, go. And it's just incredible. It's just amazing.
It was the Elden Ring of its time.
But good.
But also quality.
Yeah, and I think every Zelda game that came after it obviously built on that.
Yeah, they became a little more linear and gated, like where it was like, you're going to do this dungeon next, you're going to do this dungeon next. But the original was just free for all. Go figure it out.
Yep.
What's your number 4, Travis?
Number 4 is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which is stop making those noises.
I'm interested.
He's having a moment. Yeah.
I just burped right into the microphone.
I know that's going to be on some other lists here, so I won't. Anyway, fantastic game.
What's the crawling mechanics like in Breath of the Wild?
Actually, I don't think you can crawl in that one either. You can crouch and do like a stealth walk.
You can also surf on your shield.
You can also surf on your shield.
Would you like to explain every mechanic of the game?
You can also hold the shield aloft.
So when you're climbing up mountains and you turn the camera a little bit, it kind of looks like you're crawling.
Oh, that's true. It's a vertical crawl.
It's a vertical crawl.
It's true, vertical crawl.
My number 4 is Super Smash Brothers Melee. My favorite of the Smash Brothers series, thousands of hours logged.
Is that the second one?
It is.
It is the second game. There's N64 one, which is kind of the slow, clunky one, and then Melee was like the one that made it super fast. I still think it's like the fastest of the Smash Brothers games. I actually had I had a lunch hour at school. The period right before lunch hour, I had a drama class. The period right after lunch, I was a TA. And then my 7th period was off, or my 6th period, whatever it is, was off. My drama teacher was not actually a drama teacher. He was a water polo coach. My TA class I was for, there was actually no class scheduled. So I was in an empty room by myself. So I basically had the second half of my day, my last semester in high school, that I had nothing to do. Well, the calculus class that was going on at the same time, the teacher, they had already done the test or whatever, the end of the year test, so they were done for the last 2 months of school year. So he let them bring in Super Smash Brothers, Melee, and a GameCube. So I would just go in there and play Smash Brothers for about 3 hours at the end of every school day.
My number 4 is Pokemon Blue.
Another good pick.
Pokemon Blue. It's the one that started it all, and of course, Blue's the one that I chose.
Red was better.
Of course.
Wrong. Incorrect.
It had Squirtle on the cover.
And Blastoise.
Blastoise, I'm sorry.
Actually, a Splash.
And I don't have to explain to you guys what Pokemon means. So,
what does Pokemon mean to you?
Pokemon to me means love.
So in high school, I had 2 periods. Dan, what is your number 4?
Number 4, FTL. Faster than light.
Jinx.
It's so.
You guys both just say, faster than light.
It's so amazingly good. The narrative of like, you have these crew members in this spaceship, and you've got to get from here to here, and you want to go to as many places as you can to get more stuff, to upgrade stuff. But there's also a timer. If you wait too long, you're gonna lose. But it's almost like assess your risk. You got to figure out if you can go for it, you go for it. It's like Star Trek. You're trying to get shields, you're trying to get guns, you're trying to make sure your crew's alive, and then all of a sudden everyone's dead. Like it's just so good. It's great. I love it.
I do like
everyone's dead. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's just like life.
It's just one of those games where like you're trying to take care of everything and you start caring about your crew, and all of a sudden like some alien species is hijacking your ship and blowing up cabins, and the air pressure is leaving, and it's good.
Quick asides: FTL versus Galaxy Trucker.
I played FTL first, and when I played Galaxy Trucker, the board game, I was like, "Holy crap! This is like FTL on the tabletop." And I was that's part of the reason I love Galaxy Trucker.
I have never played Galaxy Trucker.
Well, you must play Galaxy Trucker.
Galaxy Trucker, if you have multiple people and they are all into board games. If you're all by yourself, FTL.
FTL is a great game. What is your number 3, sir?
Number 3 is Super Mario 64. Woohoo!
Is Chris Pratt in the room?
Wow, that sounded just like him. That's a good pick.
It was the first 3D Mario.
Speaking of 2D to 3D transitions, another one that did it well. I played it recently on the remake on the Switch, and I felt like it didn't age as well as I had remembered.
I think part of that's just because like Super Mario Odyssey is out, and that's just so fresh.
But I do like Mario 64.
But what it did for the genre.
For the time. Yeah. But there's certain ones that I go back and play, and I'm like, this holds up. Yeah. I've always felt that way about Mario 64 until my most recent replay. Maybe it was just Odyssey.
It was on my that made it to my honorable mentions.
I like 64.
I felt bad it didn't make it to my top 10.
Yeah. My number 3 is Half-Life 2, but not for the reasons these guys said.
Oh. Moving on.
Wait, what's your reason?
I agree with you guys. I hated your reasons.
I'm just
kidding. Half-Life 2 was the last game. I think the last game that I lined up for outside the game store. and you didn't even need to because it was like just unlocked on Steam. I got the CD and I put it in, and it's like, great, you're unlocked. It obviously brought us Steam. I mean, it was like the first game that required Steam or whatever, and that was awesome. But Half-Life 2 was rad, and I did get into all the mods and stuff for it. So,
All right, my number 3 is Breath of the Wild.
Good pick.
It's a fantastic game that Dan is in the middle of playing right now, and I think I was like 75 hours in before I even beat the first like dungeon proper. I was having fun just fishing with bombs and throwing bombs at pigs, mostly things that have to do with bombs. That I was
Love
thrilled
Breath
with.
of the Wild. Great pick. Great pick. Dan, number 3.
Number 3, Sim City.
OG.
original.
OG. It was like the first game I played that was like I could simulate an entire city. It's so fantastic.
I can control
As it says
everything.
on the cover,
Yeah.
I was able to simulate a city.
Yeah, I when I think of PC gaming in the early '90s, that was it.
I think I did 3,000. SimCity 3,000
Yeah.
was that? a
2000
thing?
was good.
I think I quite enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I could think of like later games that are in the series that obviously would probably hold up better today, but that's just a classic game. It changed so much of what PC gaming was at the time.
Yes.
Great pick.
My number 2 game is GoldenEye. End of statement.
Now you cannot crawl on GoldenEye,
No, you can't.
but you can crouch and slide around.
That's true. You can crouch and slide around, and it looks like you're on a waxed floor. It's
Or
amazing.
if you pick Odd Job, you don't have to crouch.
But you can.
For more discussion on GoldenEye, check out Travis's video game corner.
That was one of the first games where it was like 4 people up all night
On a console.
on a
specifically.
console, and you're just duking it out. It was so good.
We didn't even care about the score to the point where it was like we would play where if somebody dies, like you get shot, whatever, you just the next person swap
Yeah.
the controller. Like that was just we didn't even care. It was just.
I think
crazy.
it just did a lot for the genre on console.
Right.
But even though it was actually very poorly made in some ways, like enemies clipping through the doors, and you could shoot them through the
It
doors.
pushed the N64 to its absolute
to
limit.
its absolute limit.
And what is the proper way to play GoldenEye? Because there is a proper way, and that is proximity mines complex.
No.
Fox only Final Destination. My number 2 is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. You guys have already mentioned it. We talk about defining gaming moments, walking out of that first cave and looking out at the world. And I know they do kind of gate it where you have to beat that Great Plateau, but looking out and going, that's Death Mountain. I can walk there from here was just an incredible moment for me. I also like the the deteriorating weapons system. I know some people don't like that. But what I like about it is it forces you to consider the risk before you go into a battle and not just go, I'm just going to go slaughter everything. It's like classic D&D. You have to go in and go, am I going to get more out of this encounter than I am, than just to walk away? So you can actually just avoid stuff, which I think is a legitimate strategy in classic RPGs and more so in Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
I don't mind deteriorating weapons. I think Breath of the Wild's greatest flaw is climbing in the rain.
And
Yeah, it's always raining.
I think that is the greatest flaw.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
have
my
you
favorite
ever
part
climbed
of
in
the
the
game.
rain?
Yeah,
have you ever climbed in the rain?
I will now. I will crawl in the rain. My number 2 is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening.
It's the Game Boy
pick.
one. Yes.
That's a good pick.
That was one of the first. I think it's one of the first games I purchased on Game Boy, and played multiple times. Despite the, obviously very limited capabilities graphically, told a story, had a fantastic soundtrack, and introduced so many new elements of gameplay that I had never seen before, such as the claw game and the fishing game.
It's and the weirdness of like Mario characters showing up.
Oh,
in there. I am amazed at how much they push the Game Boy to its limits with both that game and Pokemon, and how deep some of those things were when you just had, what was the screen? It's like 60 by 3 pixels or something. I mean, it was so tiny.
And that Eagle Tower dungeon. Can we talk about the Eagle Tower dungeon?
Is that the one with the steel ball?
That is the one. Yeah.
Right.
I was
Pull my
puzzled.
hair out playing that dungeon. Yeah.
I was very. I loved the remake on the Switch, and I was excited to introduce it to my cousin, who is much younger. He was, I think, 13 at the time, and I gave it to him to borrow. And every time I would see him play it, he was just playing the claw game, just the claw game over and over again. He was like, I don't know where to go, but this is fun.
My favorite thing about Link's Awakening is this one NPC that just says, "You are one cold hombre," and that just makes me laugh for some reason.
Can you look at the camera and say that?
You are one cold hombre.
Dan, what is your number 2?
My number 2, Sid Meier's Civilization. I feel like
The original.
Well, I'll say the original for my list. At the time, there was nothing like that. And Sid Meier is kind of like one of my video game design heroes. He's such a cool guy to read about. At the time, it was like there was nothing that would simulate the whole sweep of human history of building a city, putting settlers out, raising armies, having pikemen fight tanks. I mean, it was such a cool idea for a game. And the wackiness of it. You have Gandhi launching nukes at you, and I mean, it was so cool.
As he does.
As one does, yeah.
Now the later iterations of it, and I was looking back at the first one, and it's amazing how much of that core game is still intact, even in the 5 and 6. It's still the same game, but they just added better graphics. They added more things you could do, but it's still that same basic game, and it's wonderful.
The first one I played was Civilization 2, and I got very addicted to it. It was the just one more turn phenomenon, and Alpha Centauri also. That was just incredible. Good pick. All right, we're on to our number 1 of all time.
Number 1 is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Excellent.
Obviously, a 2D to 3D transition that was done very well, and it just had a really good, wholesome fantasy story. And you don't see stories like that anymore.
It's true. Good pick.
Better than Tolkien. No, I'm kidding.
I was with you until then. My number 1 is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Similar reasons. And again, you want to talk about defining gaming moments, walking out into Hyrule Field for the first time.
Absolutely.
We were talking about this game on the playground before it came out. My friend was telling me, he's like, it's an entire world. You walk out and you can walk around the entire planet and get back to the like the rumors that were going around about this game. He's like, you have to eat to survive. Like, you have to kill the chickens and cook them, or you will die. You know, and we were just like, and so it wasn't quite that, but it was still like going out into Hyrule Field, and and it was. You could buy the strategy guide, but it was still the age when you went on the playground and were like, I can't beat the, or your friends are telling you got to bomb this rock in Hyrule Field, and then you go down, there's a piece of heart down there, and then you run home and you try to beat everybody else, your siblings, to the system so you can try it out. And Ocarina of Time. Yes.
My number 1 is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Boy, Dan's going to feel left out if he didn't pick it.
Hat trick.
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of detail, the amount of emotion, the soundtrack. I remember flipping through pages of Nintendo Power prior to the game's release and seeing those chunky, blocky graphics and thinking, this is so real. This is so real. How far we have come as a generation just from the 8-bit era. How far we've come. And yeah,
Well, and it's amazing that just a few years before, it was Link to the Past. And to go from that graphically to Ocarina.
Huge jump.
Exactly.
Huge.
And
all right.
Large polygons that loom large on the screen.
These huge
and in my heart.
Love them. Love those huge Latina polygons.
I distance myself from that portion of the conversation.
Dan, what was your number 1?
Number 1, Legend of Zelda.
He's going to say Link to the Past. Watch this.
Breath of the Wild.
Oh, I didn't realize you hadn't listed it yet. I thought you'd already listed it.
So I was having a hard time writing my list of top 10 games, and it very quickly became like, here's a list of like Legend of Zelda video games, and I didn't want to do that, so I kind of picked Breath of the Wild as the ultimate 3D Zelda experience. It harkens back to what the first game was. It's open world, and you just do it.
I tried to pick representative games for series. I did feel bad not putting Half-Life 1 on there, but putting Half-Life 2. But for Zelda, I had to allow myself to Ocarina and Breath of the Wild.
We were discussing this a little bit, but the thing is, it's not like a Borderlands where basically 1 and 2 and 3 are all just kind of iterations on top of each other. But the various Zelda games, they're all very unique, all in their own right.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I agree with that.
Hence my top 3 picks all being Zelda games.
Anybody have any honorable mentions?
I do.
You do.
A lot of Travis's list was on my honorable mentions. The classics, GoldenEye, Smash Brothers, Mario Kart 64. Absolutely.
I got Halo Combat Evolved on the PC, Portal 2, Link's Awakening, Pokemon Red and Blue, Mass Effect 2, Kingdom Rush, Super Mario Brothers 3, Knights of the Old Republic, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, Unreal Tournament, and Fallout New Vegas. I listed as my honorable mentions. And I'm sure I could come up with 100 more. But
100 more.
One of my honorable mentions would have been Skyrim, so the newest Elder Scrolls. But I like Fallout as well, but I'm just more
Skyrim was
fantasy.
like Morrowind, but bad. Right.
What I like about Skyrim is that if you enter my house in Skyrim, it's entirely filled with meat and cheese that I've collected throughout the lands.
Just like your real house.
Just like in real life. Correct.
I just did not like the bland world of Skyrim compared with Morrowind. You were like going under giant mushrooms and crazy
Morrowind has a
stilt
better
walkers.
world. I just think Skyrim plays better.
I'm like, oh, look, snow. And look, more snow.
I like snow, though. That's
true. If you like snow, maybe you like Morrowind.
I also think Yoshi's Island was one of the best side scrollers on the Super Nintendo system.
Ah, yeah.
That's very underrated. And my final underlooked one that possibly no one here has ever played or even heard of, Space Station Silicon Valley on the Nintendo
I've played it.
64.
I played
It's
the
a fantastic game where you play a microchip that can jump from robotic animal to robotic animal and inherit their powers.
It was an early GTA because it was done by Rockstar Games. And you were basically like trying to hijack different animals. And then it was like, how do I get through here? Oh, I need to be a kangaroo. And then you have to go find the kangaroo, jump into him. And I played a ton of that.
Fantastic game.
I think it was flawed, but the concept was awesome.
How much of it has to do with Neuralink, you think?
It was the entire basis of the Neuralink
Elon Musk
project.
got the idea for Neuralink from Space Station.
That's a little scary.
Silicon Valley. All right, well, this has been the end of our top video game segments, so go play all of those games.
Every single one of them.
All the time.
Except for Elden Ring.
Now let's go to hate mail. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Hey everyone here at the Babylon Bee, we want to encourage our listeners to take care of their mental health. That means maybe you don't spend so much time just doom scrolling on Twitter and reading all the news. How well would you take care of your car if you had to keep the same one your entire life? That's how your brain works. How we care for our minds affects how we experience life. So it's important to invest time and care into keeping them healthy. There's plenty of ways to support a healthy brain, like, learn a new language, play a video game, take some power naps. There's also BetterHelp, online therapy. Anytime you're going through a tough time, it's good to find a Christian brother or sister, find a pastor, and talk to them about what you're going through. You can also try BetterHelp online therapy. BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat-only therapy sessions. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/BabylonB. That's betterhelp.com/BabylonB.
I really miss Adam Ford.
Who do you hate? Whom do you hate? Is hate mail.
All right, so here I tweeted out an article. AOC sits in invisible police car awaiting transport to invisible jail. And it was a dumb Photoshop of not Elon Musk, what's her name? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sitting in an invisible chair on the street. And this guy said, it would be crazy being an editor-in-chief and having no one on staff know how to Photoshop at all. And he goes, like, half this job is writing a good joke, which you cannot. And then the other half is Photoshop, which you are bad at too. It's wild.
I still can't get over how they were being arrested and they're putting their hands behind their back. Like, why would you pretend to be cuffed? Like, I don't get that.
And then she puts her hand up. Like,
and I'm like, what?
The whole thing's stupid.
It's just awesome.
But like, you notice the news media, like CNN or MSNBC, like that's their photo
from the front.
That's why she knows optics.
They totally planned that out completely. And they probably called the news media ahead of time. We're going to get arrested, take some pictures. Awesome.
So just as a quick reminder, the podcast is going to be moving to the new YouTube channel, which is just the Babylon Bee podcast. Not the Babylon Bee, the Babylon Bee podcast. So if you want sketches, stay where you're at. If you want to keep up with the podcast, you got to go over to the new channel, the Babylon Bee podcast on YouTube.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on the Bee Weekly. Stay tuned if you're a subscriber because we have even more content coming your way, including bonus hate mail and subscriber headlines. And we're going to list our 100 more video game honorable mentions.
Got my list ready.
Actually.
Doom. That was honorable mention.
Super Mario Kart, Doom.
Super Mario Kart and Doom.
Yeah.
Can Doom crawl?
Doom cannot crawl, but the demons in your heart can.
Coming up next, for Babylon Bee subscribers.
I always feel bad when I looked at some of my old Bibles because I would highlight just phrases that I thought sounded funny. All the fat belongs to the Lord. Like I would just highlight that and I'd look back and be like, oh,
Any band, any concert, who do you go see?
I would go see the Jews at the temple. I'm curious, like, what the original Psalms sounded like.
This has been another edition of the Bee Weekly from the dedicated team of certified fake news journalists you can trust here at the Babylon Bee, reminding you that someone out there knows something about Carmen, and we're going to find them.